Hello everybody. If you've clicked on this video, you've probably noticed a similar phenomenon that I have, and that's the fact that seemingly everywhere you look these days, including and especially on the internet, Warhammer 40k is everywhere. You have a big upswing in Google Trends and statistics indicating that no, it's not just you, but people really are searching for this. According to Games Workshop, there's a lot more people buying the figurines and codices in the last few years. Also, a lot of people are getting into the lore and watching 5-hour-long videos on YouTube about the history of the Imperium. And a lot of those videos have over 1 million views. It's just crazy. Why? Why now? In this video, I'm going to explore the 4 reasons I think 40k has exploded in the last couple of years. My primary hypothesis is that I think it's because there's more of a connection between our world and 40k than we might think. When you see fandoms arise and start to gain a lot of traction and become more and more popular, it's usually because those particular fictions become more and more relatable to us in our daily lives. They become archetypal to a certain extent. And I think that we're at a point where, for better or for worse, there's a lot more similarities between 40k and the real world than we might want to imagine. For those similarities, I have one phrase that I think sums it up in its entirety, and that phrase is, just when you thought it couldn't get any worse. For this first reason, first I'll do a quick recap about the world of 40k. The fact of the matter is that the Imperium has been in decline for 10,000 years. Its institutions corrupted, its spirit decayed and bloated with the very values it once stood for, rationality, science, justice, becoming perversions of themselves and spreading their taint throughout every faction of the Imperium. It has survived, just barely, to the 41st millennium, and continues to cling on through sheer determination, refusing to end, although perhaps it should have long ago. The events of the Horus Heresy represented a lethal wound, and the Imperium has been bleeding to death ever since. It would be bad enough to be saddled simply with the traditional enemies such as the Eldar or the Orcs, but there have been new threats emerging. The Tyranid Hive fleets have emerged from the depths beyond our galaxy. Despite their endless numbers, the Imperium's generals whisper in hushed voices, knowing that these are only scouts of a much larger invasion that has the potential to swallow the entire galaxy in its maw. As if that weren't enough, the Silent King and the Necrons have awoken, an undead, robotic army, emotionless, without pity, marching towards an inevitable confrontation with the forces of humanity. And keep in mind, this is a species that has been known to utilize stars and black holes as weapons. And finally, we arrive at the events of the 13th Black Crusade, in which the traitor Abaddon managed to destroy the fortress world of Cadia, the linchpin, preventing the nightmares of chaos from spilling into the Imperium wholesale, and simultaneously splitting the galaxy in two via the Cicatrix Maledictum. Now, you might be saying, my life is not as bad as that. What do you mean it's relatable? We aren't being targeted for extermination. We're alone in the real universe, and there's currently no evidence to suggest that life exists in our galaxy beyond our own Earth. Surely our circumstances are better than the Imperium's. Perhaps you're right, but I think that we can agree that it does feel like we're awaiting inevitable doom sometimes. At any given point, checking the news at any time of day, it seems like it's coming. None of us are exactly sure what it is, but it's coming. We have political problems, and no one knows who or what to believe anymore. Then there's climate change, and scientists saying we're already past the point of no return, that the ice caps will melt and sea levels will rise, and so on. Then there's theoreticals, like the technology situation unfolding, where it certainly feels like we're approaching either some very dark or possibly golden age of technology, where you hear almost every day about some new drone that doesn't require human interaction to use its weapons, or AI that's getting better and better, or swarm tech, or even just cyber hacks and ransomware that have shut down everything from meat plants to gas lines, and it keeps happening. It's not that crazy to imagine that those attacks could hit our financial institutions. It could hit your online bank account and shut it down, stop your Imperial credits from working, and then what? I mean, how much paper money do you have on you right now? How much gold and silver do you have? How much food do you have stored in your house? And that's not even talking about the inflation situation, or the housing crisis, the wage gap, Amazon warehouse workers working from inside cages like servitors, or the national debt crisis and other various bits of economic bad news around the world indicating that an economic collapse could happen at any time. And then the latest disaster, happening just now in Afghanistan. Unfathomably heart-wrenching events, needless deaths, humanitarian disaster, failure of governments, years of sacrifice that feel wasted, and implications for a very scary and uncertain future, with uncertain enemies and uncertain allies. If all of this wasn't depressing enough, it doesn't even have to be a 21st century threat that gets us. Much like the universe of 40k, there's still plenty of other apocalyptic threats to go around. There's nuclear threats, such as China saying the other day that they were going to nuke Japan if they interfered at all with their invasion of Taiwan. There's also North Korea, that great mystery that seems to get stronger every day, not to mention our old friends in Russia. You know they haven't gone away. If you're a millennial like me, or a Zoomer, you probably never think about the fact that our parents had nuclear drills in school, where they would hide under their desks in case the nukes fell. The Cold War was real, and we might be going into another Cold War of sorts. There were cases where it almost happened, cases where you could say we were millimeters away from all-out nuclear war. Add to that natural phenomena, seen most obviously with the COVID pandemic, which is still full of unknowns, is still mutating, our vaccines are still uncertain, there's evidence that the virus has long-term effects and neurological problems that last for months, and so on. Then we've got supervolcanoes like the one in Yellowstone. Did you know that according to the Toba catastrophe theory, a supervolcano eruption took place in Indonesia 70,000 years ago, which caused up to 10 years of volcanic winter. The winter caused a massive decrease in human population and reduced the total number of humans on Earth to less than 10,000 people. So it's not like these things haven't happened before. World-ending events like supervolcanoes and the asteroid that killed the dinosaurs are not particularly unique in the grand scheme of things. It can happen, and honestly, it will happen again one day. All of these are dark and gloomy thoughts that most of us would rather not dwell on. But all of this doom and gloom is everywhere. It's inescapable. Just go anywhere on the internet, mainstream news, social media, even advertisements on the street or on YouTube, and you will be reminded that it's coming. Some combination of these disasters are coming. So which one will get you? Some of it is definitely clickbait, but a lot of those headlines are legitimate, or partially legitimate, and wondering what to believe all the time doesn't help with the whole exhaustion situation. But it's real that people are dying in Afghanistan. It's real that some of the men and women who spent years of their lives in war zones now feel that they were just faceless pawns, one of a million disposable guardsmen in 40k. Climate change is also real, and it's coming fast, and it feels just overwhelming. And that's my point. All this doom and gloom we've just been talking about, this is what 40k feels like. It feels like you're just resigned to whatever is going to happen, because you have all these major problems, any one of which by itself would be bad enough, but all of them combined together creates a situation that just seems hopeless to the point of almost starting to be funny. Like, there's just no escape. Death is inevitable, which it is, of course, and you try to take comfort in holding on to that because there's just nothing else to hold on to. Those are the same vibes as 40k. Just when you think things can't get any worse, they do get worse. They get a lot worse. And they keep getting a lot worse forever. And everyone in 40k is so small. A citizen on a hive world is a microscopic speck. A guardsman is nothing, just a total nobody. One face in a billion. Zero influence. And that's you. That's you. That's me. You can't really do anything. You're just a tiny speck in this giant meat grinder. Here's your las rifle. Go fight against Hive Fleet Hydra. Good luck. At least you went to college and got that poli-sci degree. That'll really make a difference helping fight the Tyranids, won't it? And that's what I'm getting at. I'm a guardsman. You're a guardsman. We're getting sent down to fight the Necrons, and we're both looking at each other thinking, all right, I guess this is happening. Just a battle you have zero chance of winning. And that's life in the modern world from a certain perspective, or at least how it feels sometimes. And it's relatable. It's Lovecraftian. It's Warhammer. It might seem strange to say, but it seems that there's a sort of comfort in it, in this story. That your own personal anxieties seem dwarfed by the reality that you're in when your reality has as many gigantic issues going on as 40k does. Maybe it's comforting. Maybe that's why we keep coming back to it. In 40k, the characters not only understand your feelings of uselessness and pointlessness and trying to distract yourself from horror and boredom and bureaucracy and being only a few steps from disaster, but they also have it much worse than you do. It takes that play the 2020 disaster bingo feeling and how powerless we all feel to do anything about things like climate change, terrible wars, the pandemic, etc., and it mirrors it back to us. But for the guy in the 40k story, it's so much worse. And maybe that makes us feel a little better. And that brings me to my second point. Lack of faith in institutions. Lack of faith in institutions, but at least you know where you stand. In 40k, no one really lies to you about how bad it is, and if they do, you know that they're lying. So let's say you're an imperial citizen on a hive world. You're no one special, just some guy, and the Inquisition knocks on your door. What's your gut reaction going to be? Do you think like, oh nice, I love these guys? Or do you think, uh-oh? Is there any institution in 40k that's trustworthy? No, none of them. Lutein did a really good video on Colonel Bane and the Mordant Acid Dogs on his channel, which you should check out. It illustrates a truth, a hard truth about the 40k universe. The truth is, you can do everything right. You can do everything right, and at the end of the day, you're still going to get ground down by someone in 40k, and it's very likely going to be someone you work for. In 40k, if you're just some guy, a guardsman, and let's say you do something impossible, you kill a bloodthirster, somehow you manage to hit its one weak point, if they have weak points with your laser rifle, it goes down, you save the day, you're a hero. What happens next? The Grey Knights and the Inquisition show up, and they say, ooh, wow, damn dude, nice, thanks for your service, but can you maybe come stand over here for me? Oh no, that's not a grave. It's just a hole in the ground. Yeah, I have a pretty good gun. You know, look, I'm gonna be straight with you, man. You gotta go. You were exposed to chaos, so we have to put you down. It's for the greater good. You understand. Don't take it personally. It's business. And they're all like that. Forgive my heresy, but even the Emperor constantly screws over his own guys. He screwed over the Thunder Warriors, he screwed over his own sons, aka the Primarchs. He certainly does not give a damn about his guardsmen, at least in any sense beyond them as an abstraction and arm of his own influence. He supports mankind only on a weird conceptual level. He does not care about individuals. He has zero tolerance for any human who gets in the way of his grand vision. He's come right out and said this. He acts on this principle constantly. If you get in the way of his vision for the future of mankind, you're done. Even if you're 100% correct, truthful, and doing the ethical thing, or even just following orders. If you get in the way, you're going to be steamrolled by every institution the Imperium has. You just don't stand a chance. You're done. And these institutions are not infallible by any stretch of the imagination. They make mistakes constantly. The bureaucracy in the Imperium is a nightmare. Impossible to navigate maze. Paperwork for the sake of paperwork. Even if you don't get killed, it's entirely possible to just get lost in the system and buried in paperwork, or just get sent to a mining colony because someone in the Imperium administratum put a comma on the wrong line of his paperwork. And that bureaucracy is definitely relatable. I mean, how many of you have tried filing taxes in the last year? Or tried to explain to a bureaucrat how your situation doesn't fit into any of their boxes? Or if the FBI knocked on your door tomorrow, what would your gut instinct be? How would you feel? Would you be excited or terrified? Do you have faith in your country's military? What about its industrial complex? Do you believe the corporations have your best interests in mind? What about the law enforcement apparatus? How about the pharmaceutical industry, your judiciary? Are your politicians honest? And do you genuinely believe that they do the will of the constituency or the will of their campaign contributors? How about your fellow citizens? Certainly nothing has ever gone wrong with vast swaths of the population in any given country, and it's about the same as in 40k. You really can't trust anyone beyond your own immediate circle, your battle brothers. Beyond that, watch out. Could be infected by chaos. How sure are you that your boss isn't a demon? Your boss being a demon might sound a little bit absurd, but that's my third point. It's absurd. My fellow imperial citizens, our lives are absurd. And everyone who controls our lives, including our politicians, legislators, executives, they all know that it's absurd. Our systems, our interactions, the way we do our jobs, I know, and you know, and the people who control us know that it's absurd. And they know that we know it's absurd, but there's nothing that we can do about it. And the worst thing is, we can't even choose not to participate in this absurd world. We can't stop. We're on the train, we're going down the track, and none of us know where it leads. The best human minds we have on Earth right now are pretty gridlocked, and we don't really have any good plans for navigating out of the situation that we're in. You might not admit it in public, but we all have our opinions on how, if we could wave a magic wand, we might fix things. But we don't have a magic wand. We don't have knowledge on the best way out of the mess that we're in, and even if we did, we wouldn't know how to implement it without running into catastrophe. After all, the road to hell is paved with good intentions, and we still wake up every day when we go to these jobs, knowing that we're all collectively racing towards what is very likely a bad end, but we're locked in. There's no margin for error anymore. Most of us are one paycheck away from homelessness. And the Imperium is also like that. Some people have called it the end of history, and it sort of feels that way in the broader galaxy of 40k. No one in the Imperium has any idea how to fix their problems, and the systems of control, like the Inquisition, are completely out of control themselves. They have such a stranglehold on the way that events are influenced that even if you could come up with irrefutable proof that the system is corrupt and the Emperor is not a great guy, then what's the solution? The Inquisition would just get rid of you. The Astartes would just straight up murder you. There's no getting out of it. And even if they did all agree with you, you still can't kill the Emperor, because if you did, the reality of life following that, the consequences of it would be so catastrophically worse than anything we can imagine. And so we just beat on, hoping for some kind of intervention against hopeless odds. You show up to battle, ready to give your life, knowing it's not going to matter, knowing your life is probably going to end pointlessly, but you do it anyway because that's just the order of the day. There's no other move to make. We're all going down this river together and we can't stop. The real absurdity is suggesting that we do stop. You'll be killed for that, and in the face of all that, what can you do? And that brings me to our last point. There's still a chance to be a hero. In the world of 40k, there is still a chance to be a hero. There's still a chance to try. You know, in the Horus Heresy at the end, Horus is fighting the Emperor. He has old Emps against the ropes. It's been a long fight, and just endless bloodshed, and Horus is standing there, over the Emperor, laughing. He's laughing. He's about to bring down the hammer, and he's about to throw humanity into a new dark age, worse than anything. Worse than the Age of Strife. Worse than the Dark Age of technology. And just as he's about to bring down his hammer, a single guardsman, a guy called Olanius Pius, steps between him and the Emperor. Pius obviously knows he doesn't have a chance against Horus. No chance in hell. He's gonna die. But he stands there and is ready to fight him anyway. Just a normal, non-augmented human raises his blade up against this demigod, this man who may be as powerful as the Emperor himself, and he just says, no, not today. And he dies. Of course he dies. Horus kills him, but in that moment, it gives the Emperor just enough time to make his move. Or maybe he inspired the Emperor himself through his actions to one last burst of action. Or maybe his faith in humanity. It's not clear. But in that one single moment, one human out of trillions made a symbolic gesture. And in that moment, he saved everyone. He died, but Horus was defeated. And it's a big F you to everything that wants us dead. And that's the symbol of humanity. We all know that we're going to die. We all know that humanity is screwed up 7 ways to Sunday. We all know that life isn't fair and that it's most certainly going to end badly. But we're here. We showed up. And if indeed we're going to go, we're going to give him hell before we go. And if we die, then we're going to die standing. Thanks for listening.